In just a couple of hours, the two men vying to be Virginia's next governor will square off in their third and final debate right here in Southwest Virginia. News 5's PJ Johnson is moderating tonight's debate between Republican candidate Ed Gillespie and Democratic candidate Ralph Northam at UVA-Wise. A new poll just released today by the Judy Ford Wasson Center for Public Policy at Christopher Newport University shows Northam with a 7-point lead over Gillespie. Numbers for both candidates went up slightly. However, Libertarian Cliff Hyra lost polling points and the number of undecided voters doubled. Southwest Virginia school leaders have been addressing dire situations in budgets and teacher retention. Tonight, they could hear ideas for solutions from the future governor. News 5's Olivia Bailey is in Wise, where that final gubernatorial debate will take place in just a couple of hours. She's joining us now with more. Hey, Olivia.
Hey, Rebecca. School systems are some of the largest employers here across our region, but we've seen many of them already have to make cuts with those declining budgets, and really we've already had to see consolidation measures as well. And Rebecca, this all really goes back to that population decline that we've been talking about over the past several months. The way that school funding works is that they're given money or giving funding based upon how many students are enrolled in the school district. So, for example, when those students move out of the school districts, those school systems lose money. So school systems are worried about that. School superintendents have been addressing those concerns, but both candidates say they have the solutions to solve those problems.
I also put forward a plan to help us attract teachers, recruit them to hard-to-staff schools. And it includes, for example, student loan forgiveness for teachers to come to hard-to-staff schools.
Right now, our teachers in Virginia are making $7,500 less than the national average. So, you know, if we're going to really believe that there's power in every child and give them their potential to live the American dream, we've got to be able to pay our teachers to recruit and retain teachers.
And I expect that we'll hear in this debate tonight how that funding works and how that breaks down across the Commonwealth. Getting the facts right in Wise County, Olivia Bailey, News 5 WCYB. Back to you, Rebecca.
All right, thanks so much, Olivia. Now, are they being a little more specific on their education plans? Because it's one thing to have a plan, but as far as the viability goes, they're not necessarily going to be able to put that into place. What have you learned?
Well, Rebecca, we have seen over the past year, we have seen the Southwest Virginia delegation really fight for some of this money to come back to Southwest Virginia. There was about $7 million that was allocated to school districts that with less than 200,000 students that had lost 5% of their population decline over the past 10 years. And we saw 6 school districts here in Southwest Virginia receive that funding. So it was listed as a Band-Aid, though, but Southwest Virginia lawmakers say they will fight for that. And I expect that to come back up in the legislature. And that really will affect several school districts, not only in Southwest Virginia, but across the Commonwealth. So I would say we can expect to see that based upon whichever candidate is chosen to be our next governor, and we could see that move forward in the state legislature.
All right. Thank you very much, Olivia. We are less than a month away from Election Day in Virginia, and tonight the two candidates for governor are facing off. This is the last debate before the election. Thanks for joining us for this special coverage of the Virginia gubernatorial race. I'm Rebecca Pepin. Now, tonight's debate is being held at the University of Virginia at Wise. We sat down and addressed issues specific to Southwest Virginia with local lawmakers today, and the fact that this debate is at UVA-Wise is no coincidence. The college is a central location for pushing ahead economic development initiatives and training an up-and-coming workforce. Those are pivotal points in taking Southwest Virginia in this election. It's also something that local lawmakers are keeping a close eye on and will be watching this debate closely.
I think the most important issue in Southwest Virginia is bringing new jobs, bringing new opportunities.
I'm hoping that we're going to be focused on economic development and the things that matter most to the people here in Southwest Virginia. That's job creation.
The most important issue that the new governor needs to take on is always economic development and jobs.
And I think that we're going to see a whole lot of discussion about jobs and the economy.
Other topics expected to come up tonight: the opioid crisis and transportation. There are more endorsements tonight for both candidates as well. Vice President Mike Pence will be in Abingdon on Saturday supporting Gillespie. That event's going to be happening at the Washington County Fairgrounds. Doors open at 4 o'clock and the rally starts at 6. We have ticket information at WCYB.com. In the meantime, the National Mine Workers of America endorsing Democrat Ralph Northam. UMWA President Cecil Roberts cites Northam's work for fairer conditions, higher wages, and against health care cuts as the reason behind that endorsement. Quick programming note to tell you about the debate running from 7 until 8 tonight. Jeopardy has been moved. That will air here on News 5 starting at 2 in the morning. We go now to UVA Wise and News 5's PJ Johnson, who is acting as moderator as the debate begins.
In his Baton School of Leadership and Public Policy and the Southwestern Virginia Technology Council. My name is Paul Johnson. I'm the evening anchor at WCYB and your host for this event. This is Carmen Foreman of the Roanoke Times. She covers state politics for the state of Virginia. She will be asking questions of the candidates, and I'll be keeping track of the time. Together, we'll work to cover as much ground as possible tonight while providing the candidates an in-depth opportunity to discuss some of the issues especially affecting Southwest Virginia and the Commonwealth today. We've made every possible effort tonight to ensure the fairness of these questions and the exchanges so central to our democracy. Let me state on the record here, the ground rules we've agreed to in an effort to advance the public interest in this conversation. The questionnaire seated beside me will ask each candidate a question in the order previously determined by a coin toss. Candidates will have a set response and rebuttal time, which will count down on the floor clocks. We will also have candidate-to-candidate questions and opening and closing remarks. When the candidate's time has expired, I will ask him to yield the floor. Candidates should speak during the designated time and refrain from interrupting each other. Now let us begin and welcome our first candidate, Democrat Ralph Northam.
Thank you, sir.
Now let us welcome our other candidate, Republican Ed Gillespie. It's now time to ask the first question. Carmen will do that. It goes to Mr. Northam. Here are the rules. You'll have 90 seconds to answer the question. Then Mr. Gillespie will have 90 seconds to respond. And then you'll have 60 seconds to respond to Mr. Gillespie. The first question, Carmen.
Mr. Northam, K-12 schools in the coal fields are in crisis mode. With few job opportunities and more families moving out of the area, the schools in the region are having to make do with less. As governor, what would you do in the short run to aid these struggling districts? And in the long term, what would you do to reduce the disparity between rural and urban schools across the Commonwealth?
Thank you, Carmen, for that question. And you just said exactly what's going on in rural Virginia. Well,
Mr. Gillespie, you have 90 seconds.
We need to address the population decline here in Southwest Virginia.
All right, gentlemen, thank you. Time for our second question, Carmen.
Mr. Gillespie, as you mentioned earlier today, President Donald Trump's administration announced plans to roll back the so-called Clean Power Plan. One of the clear differences between you and your opponent is how you view the energy future in the Commonwealth between coal and renewables. What would your policies be regarding these fuels, particularly in terms of subsidies, either directly or indirectly through the tax system?
I'm going to touch that in a second, but let me just point out the Lieutenant Governor is wrong in terms of the tax plan. It's not a tax cut for the wealthy. It's a tax cut for all Virginians.
Can I respond to that?
No, not really. We need to move along because I don't mean to be rude, but we need to move along. We have to go. Thanks to this audience here. You were great. I'm Paul Johnson. Don't forget, vote November 7th. Thanks for joining us here live from the University of Virginia at Wise. Good night, everybody.
Candidates in Virginia's gubernatorial race going head-to-head in a debate in Wise County tonight. News 5's PJ Johnson was the moderator. The topic, moving Southwest Virginia forward. Questions focusing on the region's economy, drug abuse problem, and education. News 5's Olivia Bailey has the story.
Monday's debate brought forth a sense of urgency in boosting the economy of rural Southwest Virginia.
when you bring jobs and allow families to come here and work and raise their families, then that helps the economy, and it certainly helps with the public schools.
The candidates dealing with the region's challenges, including a loss of jobs, and named the epicenter of opioid abuse.
This cannot become a partisan issue. This is something that Democrats, Republicans, independents, everyone must come together in the Commonwealth of Virginia to save lives and save families.
There was no lack of tense moments in the hour-long debate.
My opponent is actually the architect of gerrymandering throughout this country.
The fact is, we're talking about a job that you are seeking now and that you sought from us. You've got 8.4 million clients, Lieutenant Governor Northam. I'm one of them.
But the candidates agreeing on some of the issues, crucially holding Southwest Virginia residents back.
Our children that are working on a computer at school, when they go home with an assignment at night, and they don't have access to broadband, their hands are tied.
We could work with the Tobacco Commission to have some funding for help close the gap and incentivize middle mile and last mile extension of high-speed internet access.
Getting the facts right in Wise County, Olivia Bailey, News 5 WCYB.
Both candidates receiving campaign help from outside sources. Vice President Mike Pence will be in Abingdon this Saturday campaigning for Republican candidate Ed Gillespie. It's happening at the Washington County Fairgrounds. The doors will open at 4 o'clock and there will be a rally starting at 6 o'clock. For ticket information, go to WCYB.com. And the group National Mine Workers of America is endorsing Democrat Ralph Northam, the UMWA president, citing Northam's work for fairer conditions, higher wages, and his stance against health care cuts as reasons behind that endorsement.